So, hello everyone. Glad you could join us or join me, representing us today. Okay, so I'd like to to encourage us just to arrive firstly with ourselves and how we are right now, what's present for us. So, just encourage you to maybe take a few slower, deeper breaths and just feel the ground beneath you. And do let me know if there's any problem hearing me in any way. So as this is the Sunday Sacred Mountain Sangha weekly gathering, so we'll be doing a little bit of chanting, meditation. I'd like to offer a few reflections. And in particular, we'll be really bringing a lot of awareness to the Middle East and what's happening there, which I'm sure is up foremost in many, if not all, of our hearts and minds. And reflecting on bringing Dharma, the medicine of Dharma, and part of that will be a guided Guanyin meditation, compassion meditation. And then some Dharma reflections. And then I'd just like to open the space for you to share, and really more what we're with, how we are, what we feel. We know how charged and how the war of the narratives and who has dominance in which narrative, how that's really inflamed, and whose side we're all standing on or not standing, and so on. So in the Dharma, not that that all doesn't have its own place in its own ways, but to really just go more to what's present for us rather than the ideologies, solutions and things like that right now. And when we share. But for now, what's really important is that we allow our attention and our awareness to settle inwardly as the dynamic that we're focusing on a lot this morning. And of course, for really the ongoing nature of conflict and violence, war, so historical, so deeply somatically embedded in all of our generational histories, so easily activating a profound field of trauma, to be aware of that, but to really also allow this medicine of the Dharma as we start to just gather inward and reclaim our own agency, as we've been pulled, probably, I know I have, a lot into what's happening, just to regain our own agency. So let's just begin by helping to regulate our nervous system in a very simple way. And so for me, you might have your own way of doing this. I like to pick up the mantra, the primary mantra that was taught by Ajahn Chah, our great, beautiful, profound meditation master from Northeast Thailand. And that was just the simple word Buddho. You might have your own word or phrase. Bud, you can use it with the breath, Bud, B-U-D, sometimes with the inhalation, Tho, D-H-O, on the exhalation, Buddho, just meaning really returning to this Buddhic essential nature, knowing, presence, aware. And to help us with the mantra, if you like, you can sync breath with mantra. You can slow down the breath, maybe starting with 5. I often just count or touch the fingers on the palms of on the hand, just to help embody and ground, just touching and allowing the swirling, feeling tones, thoughts, what's present for us to just begin to be gathered into the core, deep listening of the heart. So let's just do that together. Just starting, if you like, with 5 to 10 deep, slowing breaths, with a mantra or word or phrase that helps you center and ground. And as we're breathing in, we're just feeling the breath suffusing with our awareness through the body. On the inhalation, and then on an exhalation, just allowing a softening around where we're holding. So maybe that's around the face, around the shoulders, softening down through the belly into the ground. So continuing with those breaths, deepening the breath, embodiment, touching earth, returning to our own presence, slowing down, and remembering as we hold our phrase, our mantra, refuge, timeless refuge of the heart, of presence, of the stream of awakening, of the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, the wise ones, as we'll be invoking shortly to be present at this time. And remembering in this practice the nature of awareness, this metta, this maitri, literally has the essential meaning of softening, and softening the heart in particular. To be receptive, listening, with a deepening of equanimity in that place of listening. It doesn't mean non-responsiveness or non-care by any means. It just means allowing things to settle, the waves that have been stirred up, so we feel the depth of the ocean, the stillness, the presence of that, the intelligence, Dharma intelligence that we can hear more clearly as the waves settle. Okay, so that ground, keeping with that ground of returning, touching the earth, feeling the sensation where our body is touching earth. Taking some deeper and slower breaths from time to time. We can offer some ancient phrases, chants, mantras. As part of our session today is to share blessings, share the energy of what we're doing, positive energy for all. So I'm just going to put in the chat, if you haven't got with you directly, the chanting booklet, so you can open that up. And I'd like to begin on the top of page 3, and that is just the simple sounding of the honoring of the Buddha. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa, honoring of awakening, historical Buddha, all Buddhas, all awakened ones, and the internal Buddha nature, the immanence of a knowing and presence seated deeply within our own being and the hearts of all beings, honoring this fundamental diamond-like heart, Namo Tassa, and then aligning the mind that's stirred up with this deep, timeless refuge through the sounding of the 3 refuges. So let's just begin there. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddhaṃ saranang gacchāmi, Dhammaṃ saranang gacchāmi, Sanghaṃ saranang gacchāmi, Dutiyampi Buddhaṃ saranang gacchāmi, Dutiyampi Dhammaṃ saranang gacchāmi, Dutiyampi Sanghaṃ saranang gacchāmi, Tatiyampi Buddhaṃ saranang gacchāmi, Tatiyampi Dhammaṃ saranang gacchāmi, Tatiyampi Sanghaṃ saranang gacchāmi. And then we can move on to page 8. This is the sounding of the Brahma Viharas. And as we sound, this is in English actually. There's 3 notes denoted by dots above and below vowels and consonants. But really, as we're sounding, whether in the ancient languages or in translated, we're still tapping into the original mind of the Buddha and this ancient, beautiful teaching of the articulating the natural state of the heart. And the heart unobstructed has these radiancies of loving kindness, of compassion, of uplifting and enjoying and promoting the good for all, the joyful, the beautiful, and of deep peace and equanimity. So as we're sounding this chant, let's just hold that possibility of the Brahma Viharas being present for all and those at this moment suffering in various roles and various shapes and various forms and various actions that are caught. We're caught up in violence, hatred, pain, confusion, overwhelm, and all the unimaginable and yet happening, what we've been witnessing, and maybe what we all feel in different ways deeply connected with. So let's just hold this for not only those within Israel, Palestine, and the neighboring countries and areas, but all around the planet, all caught in those energies and histories, which basically is all of us in some way or another. Now let us make the four boundless qualities shine forth. I will abide, pervading 1/4, with a heart imbued with loving kindness. Likewise the second, likewise the third, likewise the fourth. So above and below, around and everywhere, and to all as to myself, I will abide, pervading the all-encompassing world, with a heart imbued with loving kindness, abundant, exalted, immeasurable, without hostility and without ill will. I will abide, pervading 1/4, with a heart imbued with compassion. Likewise the second, likewise the third, likewise the fourth. So above and below, around and everywhere, and to all as to myself, I will abide, pervading the all-encompassing world, with a heart imbued with compassion, abundant, exalted, immeasurable, without hostility and without ill will. I will abide, pervading 1/4, with a heart imbued with gladness. Likewise the second, likewise the third, likewise the fourth. So above and below, around and everywhere, and to all as to myself, I will abide, pervading the all-encompassing world, with a heart imbued with gladness, abundant, exalted, immeasurable, without hostility and without ill will. I will abide, pervading 1/4, with a heart imbued with equanimity. Likewise the second, likewise the third, likewise the fourth. So above and below, around and everywhere, as to all as to myself, I will abide, pervading the all-encompassing world, with a heart imbued with equanimity, abundant, exalted, immeasurable, without hostility and without ill will. And the great compassion mantra. And from the great compassion mantra, I'll go into a short guided meditation of compassion, calling on Kuan Yin. So as we sound this mantra, just bringing to mind that within this mantric form, there are the energetic bodies, if you like, or mudras, gestures of Kuan Yin, the 42 hands and eyes, that are being activated through sounding these sacred syllables. And all of these hands and eyes are about merciful, direct responses to pain, to suffering, whether it be nectar to soothe and calm the fires of hatred, whether it be lassos and axes to tie up demonic energies and cut through obstructions, whether it be Manihan, moon bowl, sun bowl of healing essences to bring healing to living beings, whether it be the arrow to pierce the heart so that beings can awaken. There's just a wish-fulfilling pearl for this hold in that wish-fulfilling pearl for peace, for based in a deeper level of true collective reparation and justice that we need at a planetary level at this moment to lift the frequency for the highest good for all. Whatever response that is needed, we're calling on Guan Yin through this mantric form and through our meditation to be conduits, to bring this stream of awakening, this river of healing to bear forth into this situation, and particularly now in Gaza, in Israel, in the surrounding territories and lands, that we can just hold in our minds and in our hearts that this is like we're invoking like a healing, calming, transformative river of compassion, stream of compassion, and allowing that in your mind's eye to just flow through all that is present and all that we've seen and heard and know about, including all ancestors. This has deep, deep roots, and all ways that we're connected into these stories and unfoldings, and holding and calling on the merciful response of Kuan Yin and all beings of awakened nature to be close to this realm, to this situation at this time, to bring healing. Ye moha zaro ma ye moha jalu ni jaye na zaban lava ye zoran no razi namos li mengali ye boluji li juvola lendo me namo no la jinjazi li moha bando zam ye zambad shubenga shuyen zamba zaro namo baje mo vade Rajirunana Sila Jari Jalali Sili Moha Buddhi Sato Samba Samba Mola Mola Moshi Moshi Lido Chulu Jaman Lulu Lulu Vajayere Moha Vajayere Rola Rola Lili Nishu Vola Jela Jela Mola Muli Yesi Yesi Juno Juno Ola Jen Vola Jele Vaja Vajan Vola Jele Hulu Hulu Mola Hulu Sile Zola Zola Zili Zili Zulu Zulu Buddhi Buddhi Budwaye Budwaye Miri Nula Jinjet Shiny Nomaye Mono Zomba Zidwaye Swamba Moha Zidwaye Swamba Zidwaye Shermanla Swamba Nola Jinja Swamba Mola Nola Swamba Zidus Treye Swamba Swamba Moha Zidwaye Swamba Jajila Zidwaye Swamba Bado Moja Zidwaye Swamba No Jinja Banjela Swamba Mobali Jinjela Swamba Namma La Nara Ye Namma Puru Jedi Shambola Swamba Nazidian Mandola Badwaye Swamba. Now again, if you can invite you to bring your attention more inwardly, using the breath as a guide, guiding attention with awareness towards your heart area. And within that, you also present, embodied presence, feeling presence, receiving this whole sensation of the body. Being receptive, humble heart, we invoke the presence of Kuan Yin Bodhisattva, a great stream of profound compassion and awakening, however we feel that to be, in whatever form or shape or way that speaks to us. We invite Guan Yin to be present in our heart, in our being, in whatever way that feels resonant for us. We might have an image, we might have a sense, we might just have the word, we might just have the word of compassion. And as we bring and invite the stream of compassion, we're just breathing that through the whole body, like a golden healing light, or in whatever form or image or sense that you have to invoke that stream of healing, of light, like a stream suffusing through the whole body. And as we invite this presence of great compassion to be with us, we ask that our own pains and anxieties, worries, fears, doubts, sense of not being good enough, all the different ways that we have felt, for many of us, deeply troubled and pained by what's happening in the Middle East, what's happening around the planet, what's happening for those caught in wars, and great deprivation and suffering. The way it's felt within us, just gathering those in to offer those energies, those shadows, those sufferings, as if they're gathered in a net and offered into the heart of Kuan Yin, onto the altar of Kuan Yin, releasing the holding of those pains in ourselves, in our body, and instead, on the in-breaths, suffusing through our body this healing, brilliant, beautiful stream of light. Going through not only our own being, but through our generational lineage, from the past, in the present, and into the future. And as we're particularly focusing right now on the situation in Israel, Palestine, Gaza, the surrounding territories, all that's being activated, all that's been unleashed, this great horror that's been unleashed by the lack of wise leadership at this time, engulfing so many in this fire of pain and suffering and death, bloodshed. We just call on Kuan Yin, and in our mind's eye, just gathering from all sides, all places, all geographies where this it's been impacting, that it was impacting in a large net, Kuan Yin's net of compassion, calling on Kuan Yin to gather as we lend our own hearts to this process, to gather all the shadows, all the ancestral traumas, the hatred, the violence. And as Kuan Yin gathers that, it's dissolving into this vast original nature of the undivided heart, timeless heart, vast, profound, like the vastness of the depth of the ocean, to be dissolved. And invoking and asking for these lands, these beings, ourselves included, all impacted, to be filled with light, with healing golden light, suffusing and rolling and washing through all at this time. Dispelling pain, dispelling shadows, dispelling fear, hatred, ignorance, violence, confusion. So we sincerely invoke all beings, protector beings, in whatever realms, in whatever ways, to be present, to protect those caught in this firestorm, to protect the children, to protect each and every being, to clear the hearts of those perpetuating violence, to return all to their original nature, to protect the earth itself. so that we join with the stream of awakening, Kuan Yin Bodhisattvas, the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, the wise ones, the elemental protectors, the Dharma protectors, the Devic beings, high beings of light, the earth protectors, the ancestors. We call on all to be present at this time, to bring healing, to bring the cessation of hostilities, the overturning of this profound wheel of vengeance and revenge, to bring the medicine of the Dharma, imagining Kuan Yin's holding her vase, their vase, this vase, endless vase of pure healing nectar sprinkling with the olive branch over all, soothing, calming, overcoming delusion, hate, fear, greed, pain that's being inflicted. Imagine that we're joining all beings offering this prayer at this moment, all ancestors, as we breathe together, sending light and healing and gathering pain and suffering, putting it on the altar of the great ones, the enlightened ones, for them to dissolve the pain. Just allowing the sense of Kuan Yin, ourself, other beings, here, there, to dissolve into this listening, present heart. Thank you so much, everyone. I do really believe in this practice that we've just done. Encourage you in any simple way that we can all continue to just bring this frequency of compassion and invoking in the way, whatever you feel, this prayerfulness that is actually very real, in that we start to move from the sense of us individually going through our reactivity into a deep pool of collective wisdom that we can bring forth through intentionally focusing the mind. This is a way of the Buddha to understand the power of intention, the power of compassion, which is so needed, obviously, at this moment. We have arrived at a juncture, as we all so profoundly and painfully aware on our planetary journey, where there's just a lot of profound activation of unhealed ancient traumas and ways that we have lacked wisdom and compassion, and now we're suffering the consequences of that lack. And there's so many different ways where the mind can go around the impact of those consequences. But what is really helpful to always remember, wherever we go and whatever is our piece to do, and we all have a piece to do, the path of the Buddha was also a path of right action, right speech, engagement, bringing compassion into form and expressing that as he did himself, is that whatever piece is for us to do is and whatever gets activated, and especially now what we're looking at and what we're meeting around today in particular is so activating, as we've seen in the conversations happening and where people are coming from, is that to remember that what we're standing with ultimately is the Dharma. We might have affinities of ways that we stand in different relationship to what is happening, say in Israel, Palestine, Gaza, and so on, or in any other conflict that are particular to our affinities, but to remember that the Dharma stands with all beings, regardless, even those that are lost in the most delusion, but it also stands with protecting from harm and doing what we can to protect from the momentum of harm through whatever skillful means that we can bring to bear that is rooted in non-violent response. This is the way of the Dharma. And one of the things that moved me very greatly, and I refer to it often because I think it was one of the most profound experiences, although very short, for informing me for these times, which was being for a short while, the blink of an eye, at Standing Rock in response to the elder Chief Arvel Looking Horse inviting people of prayer, of faith to come to join a resistance rooted in prayer and ceremony and non-violence. And his message and the elders' message, and the elders doesn't just mean necessarily by age, but the elders' message is to really that even when there was a lot of violence going on around, perpetuated by the private militia that was hired, that we must remember that everything that we're doing, even with so-called enemies, is for the children of all, not just for our tribe, our camp, our peace, affinity group. Although that can be very activated and very profound because of our ancestral affinities. So we lack in these times, mostly, for the most part, a lack of wise leadership in these moments. We have leaders that are actually using the fear, weaponizing the trauma, ancestral trauma, for their own ends, and fermenting increasing division and hatred. And we simply cannot really afford that at this time. It's so dangerous, it's so devastating. We're seeing exactly what's happening, the potential for the terror that's being unleashed right now has the potential to draw in the whole planet in ways that would be unthinkable, because the platforms that are often in the powers that are being held are not being guided. Those enormous powers are not guided by deep compassion and wisdom, and we're paying the price for that. So one of my contemplations around this is how important it is and how valuable it is in the Dharma is to hold to a middle path, a middle way, to find the middle way in the situations where things become polarized in the extremes. And when they're polarized in such extremes, then really there's no real ability to meet and to have discourse and have wise solutions going forward. And for this, I think often those that hold the middle often are quieter people, often their voices aren't out there screaming on the edges. And, in the Dharma, we tend to be quiet. Often we're trained in, but I do feel this is the time when we have to wisely respond and bring our voice, our presence to protect, to call on those that are in leadership positions, that are holding power, to really listen in deeply, like we were encouraged by Chief Arval Looking Horse at that time. What is of benefit for all children? What is really needed to protect? And what therefore can we bring to further that wise protection, so that these cycles, these vicious cycles of cruelty and carnage really aren't just unleashed everywhere and unleashed often in those that are most vulnerable. So I do feel this time generally is a very challenging time for each of us to really to find our voice, to find our power, to root that in the Dharma, and to feel into not just a quietism, but a Kuan Yin type response in whatever ways we can. And for that, it's really helpful. I remember when I was once talking to one of the elders that had been a guide in so many ways in South Africa, Baba Mandaza Kandemwa. I know that some of you and some friends here that will remember Baba, know Baba very much. And I remember one morning I was at a conference in an area north of Johannesburg at the Origin Center, Humankind Origin Center, where the archaeologists had found some of the ancient first people, the bones of the first peoples of humanity. And so a beautiful center that they had created there. The Origin Center is sort of towards Pretoria, north of Joburg. And the conference was on mindfulness, bringing mindfulness in Africa. So there was a lot of, it was very dynamic and beautifully done. And I was asked to give a presentation. At that time, as many of you are aware, we were living in South Africa many decades. And I had a very difficult night around this presentation because first of all, I was very aware I was literally sitting on the bones of ancient elders, that in this area there was a sort of, not exactly a memorial, but there was a garden of statues of all the struggle heroes. And so this sort of deep understanding and feeling of having part English ancestry, part Irish, but part English, part colonizer ancestor, not just ancestor, actually being brought up there. But so I was very conflicted, because here I was as a white person sitting on this very potent African, deep ancestral place, asked to talk about what was an Asian tradition that's actually in the mindfulness movement often stripped of acknowledgement of it being an Asian tradition, called Buddhism. And I really couldn't find something to, I really felt like all the ghosts, all the beings were like, and I felt a deep sense of grief mostly, and not really prepared to come into this space to just give some sort of polished Buddhist talk, a bit like today. So in the morning I was really ragged, and I walked in a bit early, and I sat next to Baba Mandaza. He was one of the first people in the hall, and I was sitting there. And I was also aware Baba Mandaza from Zimbabwe and what the British had done in Zimbabwe and so on. And I was trying to apologize. It sounded very tinny, and I meant it, but it just didn't sound, I just felt this feels really inadequate. But for the colonial presence of my own, those, from the country that I'd been brought up in, and I was talking to him about what happened in the night and what I was feeling. And he listened to all this, and he just said, calls me Mama. I call him Baba. He says, Mama, this is the story of humanity, and we need a new story. We need a new story. These old stories that we're cycling through, for us to be a better conduit, to feel our peace, we need really to begin to clear and release the allegiances that we have to all of the old stories that we hold so tightly, that connect us that in whatever way perpetuate these cycles, vengeance and fear and shame, and the things that oppress human consciousness and keep us from the fullness of our being. So this is profound work. I feel it's work well within the scope of the Dharma. And as we do that, then we will hear, and that Kuan Yin heart will be seated in our own heart. And we will hear more clearly what is ours to do. But we have things to do for sure, to not just let the planet and these highly vulnerable places where there's profound levels of oppression, injustice, pain, trauma, violence that has been enacted over and over again, these hot spots, if you like, to just let them at the mercy of those hijacking that plane for their own distorted ends, and bringing everyone into a massive moral descent of the humane, where it becomes harder and harder to actually be humane together. We're just in different positionings. So, for us in the Dharma, we're well placed for holding this middle ground, for holding this compassion, for being the wise leaders, as Baba would say. Don't wait to, be them. we may not feel very wise. I often feel a bit of a mess, but when we attune to the Dharma, it's not our wisdom. We're hearing wisdom, the living Dharma, as Ajahn Chah would say, and allowing that to come forward. So these are just a few of my thoughts in the swirl of everything that's been happening. So I'm realizing that just to sort of the frame that we're in, the time frame that we're in, we'll just sort of take a pause in a moment and complete this part, and then we have some open space. I'd like to open the space for you to share. And then we're going to have a break. For those that can stay on, we'll be doing the Kuan Yin compassion ceremony. I'll post the text for that in the chat shortly. And that will run from the top of the hour, let me see, the top of the next hour. I don't know what time zone you're in. And so it runs for about an hour and a half, and we'll be taking everything that's happening, and particularly the geographical area that we're focusing on and all that's happening there now. We'll be taking that into the ceremony. And of course, we take all beings with us into the ceremony, and we take ourselves into the ceremony. So you're very welcome to stay for that. You might have a break and want to come back. You want to continue sharing, I'm here. I might have a pause for a cup of tea before we go to the ceremony. But before we go into that next part of our session, I'd just like to share blessings for those that do need to go at the top of this hour. So let us just come into, again, our own deeper intention of why we're in this path, why we're doing this work, why we're aligning with the Dharma. There's our love for this way of awakening. And may we share this love, may we share this power of awakening, may we share all the blessings that emerge from our collective, from all practitioners, whatever practice they're in, that are working towards the upliftment of all. May all these be shared with wherever is needed at this time, and particularly those within Gaza, within Israel, Palestine, the surrounding territories, West Bank, and so on, surrounding countries, and around the world. May peace prevail. May peace prevail. May peace prevail.